The Richardson estate had always worn an air of perfection, a carefully cultivated illusion of wealth and harmony. Its grand halls, polished floors, and walls lined with portraits of ancestors whispered of a lineage untarnished, a dynasty untouched by chaos. Yet beneath that veneer, the house trembled with the unspoken, with truths that had been buried in silence, slowly fermenting into a storm waiting for its first spark. And that spark came in the form of Eva Thomas, the daughter who had been denied everything by a father who preferred the comfort of ignorance and a mother who thrived in the shadows of deception. Kat Richardson had grown within these walls, cradled in the belief that she was the center of this carefully curated universe. Every smile from her father, every approving glance, every privilege, they were hers by default, earned by birthright, reinforced by years of subtle conditioning. She had been taught to see herself as untouchable, unchallenged, a queen in a kingdom where no rival could emerge. But the arrival of Eva shattered that illusion with the precision of a blade across silk. The girl who had been deemed invisible now occupied the spaces Kat had always assumed belonged exclusively to her. The realization ignited a fury that had been lying dormant beneath Kat's composed surface, a fire she had never allowed herself to feel in its full, scorching intensity. Eva did not move like a threat, she moved like inevitability. Every step she took, every decision she made, radiated a quiet defiance that Kat had never learned to anticipate. Eva was not merely challenging her, she was dismantling the very foundations of her identity. The estate, once a sanctuary, became a battlefield, each hallway a corridor of suspicion, each room a theater of silent warfare. Kat's mind raced constantly, formulating strategies to retain her supremacy, calculating risks with the precision of a chess master whose king was under threat. Yet every move she made seemed to be countered by Eva's calm, deliberate choices, forcing Kat into a corner she had never experienced before, the corner of uncertainty, the corner of fear, the corner of vulnerability. The tension between them was more than a clash of personalities, it was a collision of lifetimes, of stories written in silence and absence. Kat's anger was raw, a corrosive blend of fear and entitlement, her identity feeling as though it were being eroded from within. Eva's fury, by contrast, was tempered by pain, a calculated instrument forged from years of neglect, from the sharp edges of rejection that had shaped her every thought and feeling. Each woman had been molded by loss, betrayal, and the hunger for recognition, but while Kat's strength was bolstered by expectation and privilege, Eva's was fueled by necessity, by the knowledge that she could rely on no one but herself. Their conflict did not exist in words, but in actions, in subtle manipulations, in the art of psychological combat. Kat intercepted communications meant for Eva, rerouted alliances, spread subtle doubts among the staff, calculated small humiliations designed to destabilize her rival. Yet Eva anticipated, adapted, and often turned these minor provocations into leverage, revealing the cracks in Kat's carefully constructed armor. The house itself became a character, reflecting the psychological warfare, walls felt closer, shadows lingered longer, every step echoed like a drumbeat of impending confrontation. As days turned into weeks, the intensity escalated. Kat's strategies grew more aggressive, more desperate. She began to exploit weaknesses she had unearthed in Eva's history, reminders of past insecurities, moments of hesitation. Each revelation was a weapon, each slight a potential victory. But Eva responded not with panic, but with meticulous countermeasures. She learned the rhythms of Kat's scheming, anticipated the timing of her strikes, and quietly turned the estate into a minefield where Kat's missteps could explode into consequences. Every plan Kat set in motion became a mirror, reflecting her own insecurities back at her, forcing her to confront aspects of herself she had long ignored, vulnerability, fear of irrelevance, and the deep-seated terror that her place in the world was not guaranteed. The psychological strain was compounded by the presence of their extended family and allies, whose loyalties were fractured by the subtle machinations of both women. Every glance, every hesitation, every whispered remark could be weaponized. Kat's frustration grew as she realized that control was slipping through her fingers, that her assumed dominance was not absolute. She began to act impulsively, making decisions driven by anger and desperation rather than reason. Eva, sensing these cracks, intensified her focus, striking with precision at the moments Kat least expected. There were nights when the estate was silent, yet Kat could feel Eva's presence in every shadow, every corridor. Her mind replayed imagined confrontations, worst-case scenarios that left her heart hammering and her skin tingling with dread. She had always believed herself immune to fear, but now she discovered that fear was not the enemy, it was a mirror, revealing truths she had been unwilling to acknowledge. Eva's quiet power was terrifying because it forced Kat to recognize her own limitations, to confront the fragility of the control she had assumed was hers by right. Meanwhile, Eva faced her own crucible. The more she advanced, the more the weight of choice pressed upon her. Each maneuver she executed carried consequences not only for herself but for those around her, and she could not ignore the possibility that her actions might provoke irreversible damage. She wrestled with morality, with the potential to betray the very values she held, understanding that survival in this world often demanded a compromise between conscience and necessity. Yet, even as the ethical stakes mounted, she refused to yield, refusing to allow the injustices of her past to dictate the terms of her future. The tension reached its apex during a series of events that left both women trapped in metaphorical corners, where every option seemed perilous. Kat, driven by rage and fear, orchestrated a situation designed to force Eva into capitulation, a test of loyalty, cunning, and endurance. Eva, however, had foreseen such an entrapment, turning the situation against Kat with calm ingenuity. The consequences were devastating, relationships fractured, alliances shifted, and both women were forced to confront the cost of their ambitions. Pain, regret, and the exhilaration of victory intertwined, creating a maelstrom of emotion that neither could fully control. In those moments, the conflict became more than a struggle for power, it became an exploration of identity. Kat saw herself reflected in Eva's eyes, the same hunger, the same resilience, and recognized that her greatest adversary was not her sister, but the parts of herself she had been denying. Eva, in turn, saw echoes of her own past in Kat's desperation, understanding that the line between victim and perpetrator, between justice and vengeance, was perilously thin. By the time the dust settled, the estate was no longer a sanctuary but a battlefield marked by scars, visible and invisible. Kat and Eva emerged transformed, their rivalry leaving them changed in fundamental ways. Kat's fury had tempered into a sharper, more cautious resolve, while Eva's strategic acumen had been honed to a dangerous edge. Both carried the weight of their choices, the consequences of their confrontations, and the understanding that power was fleeting, alliances fragile, and trust a currency too easily squandered. The war between them had no definitive victor, only survivors, women forced to confront themselves in the crucible of familial conflict, betrayal, and ambition. Every glance, every action, every decision became a testament to the intensity of their struggle, a reminder that in a world built on privilege, deception, and desire, the boundaries between love, hate, and survival are always blurred, and only the strongest will endure the fire unscathed. When the storm finally subsided within the Richardson estate, what remained was not victory, but an uneasy equilibrium, fragile as glass and fraught with the weight of unspoken truths. Kat and Eva, though no longer in immediate conflict, carried within them the indelible marks of their struggle, a mixture of exhaustion, anger, and a reluctant respect forged in fire. Kat, once untouchable in her sense of entitlement, now understood the precariousness of power, the way it could slip through one's fingers despite careful calculation and inherited privilege. Every glance she cast over the estate reminded her that control was never absolute, that someone like Eva could emerge from shadows and redefine the rules of engagement. Eva, in turn, bore the scars of her own battles, victories shadowed by the moral compromises she had made, decisions that left her questioning the line between justice and vengeance. She had fought not merely for recognition, but for identity, for the right to exist in a world that had denied her every certainty. Yet with each move she executed, each small triumph against her sister's schemes, she realized that survival required constant vigilance, that the arena they had shared was one of perpetual tension, where alliances shifted like sand and trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. The house, once a symbol of heritage and order, now felt like a labyrinth of memories and regrets. Every hallway whispered of betrayals, every shadow hinted at strategies unfulfilled, every room held the residue of ambition and anger. The women had become both architects and prisoners of their own conflicts, caught in a cycle of rivalry that could neither be fully escaped nor conclusively resolved. They understood that power was not simply inherited or claimed. It was contested, fragile, and exacting, demanding both sacrifice and cunning. As the estate settled into an uneasy quiet, Kat and Eva moved through their lives altered, tempered by confrontation, acutely aware of the stakes that loomed in every decision. Theirs was a story without a neat conclusion, a tale defined by the intensity of emotion, the complexities of family, and the relentless drive for acknowledgement. And though the battle had paused, it had left in its wake a new reality, a shared understanding that in a world dominated by ambition, betrayal, and desire, strength was measured not only by the victories achieved, but by the resilience to endure, the intelligence to anticipate, and the courage to navigate a terrain where every step could ignite a storm anew.